to another wonderful live inspirational community collaboration. These are the locations where we bring together the bestest people we can find and help them share their inspiration and their wisdom with you, the people. We, the people, for you, the people, for us, the people, we, you, us. Exactly. Today is Tech Tuesday, and I have some wonderful guests. I have Tiffany Barsotti. Did I do that right?
You did.
Tiffany Barsotti is coming on. A magnificent scientist, Reverend Tiffany Barsotti, a scientist and spiritual healer. We'll get to her very shortly. And then afterwards, we have Benjamine Matter. If it don't mind, it don't matter. A doctor, surgeon, oral surgeon, and a healer, a breath worker, a transformation expert. And having moved on from all the medical world, he now works in the healing world, which is, of course, medical, as we found out last week on Tech Tuesday with Melinda Connor and Caitlin Connor. So, wonderful. Please like and share. Like the movie, share it, do all that stuff. Sharing's really the key to helping us out. So, great. My name's Markabadi. Let's begin. Let's bring in a smooth transition, Tiffany Barsotti. Wonderful. How are you? Hello, welcome.
Most excellent. Thank you. Thanks for doing this and creating a community.
Oh, I like that play on that. Exactly. Where are you?
San Diego, Encinitas, California, to be exact.
Okay, so when we first met, it was at the California Institute of Integral Sciences?
Or Human Science.
California Institute for Human Sciences. And I was most impressed with the discussion we had, which was about your thesis, your master's thesis you did, which was enlightenment and the different locations in the brainstem and the different systems that activate during awakenings and realizations. Tell us a little bit about, your background leading up to that, and now what do you do?
Fantastic. Happy to share. Thank you. So yes, you are correct. We met at the California Institute for Human Science. It's actually where I helped build a lab with Gaetan Chevalier and Mary Clark, who does a lot of pranic healing teaching there, and Melinda Connor, who is actually was your guest last week.
Yeah.
We've been doing work with her from SciTech for many years. So I'm not physically in the lab anymore, but we got something going there that was really unique. And all the while building my practice, my private practice, I essentially had a rude wake-up call and had to follow the footsteps of my true path. And that's a much longer story. It's on my website. It's called The Reluctant Healer, because I really didn't want this job. And the sort of the ups and downs and the plight of what happens when you follow your path. But if you don't, what's on the other side of that is really no good. So you eventually just come around. So that's what happened. I ended up building a private practice in New York, New Jersey, Texas, California. And a lot of that was actually happening while I was at Holos University, which is a graduate seminary. It was created by Carolyn Mace and Norm Shealy.
Norm Shealy is fantastic. How is Norm?
He's fabulous. We were both teaching for the Graduate Institute that's associated with the Yale Divinity School last month, and it was lovely to reconnect.
I think he's going on my list.
Good. Awesome.
He's going on my list. So, and of course, I met Norm from the Institute for the Study of Subtle Energy and Energy Medicine, ICEM,
Yes.
which of course is probably how I met Melinda Connor as well, which was a fantastic organization he was involved with. So you were at CIHS and you were doing stuff there and you were creating a lab. Did you help build a laboratory?
Yes. So the specialty of the lab was a sort of testing in a non-invasive way. So we did thermography. I became a specialist in thermography, a clinical thermographer.
Nice.
And of course, at Holos University, I was already exposed to Konstantin Karakov's devices that were the GDV and gas discharge visualization is what that stands for.
Yep.
or EPI, electrophotonic imaging. And that's actually where I started doing more and more in-depth work, looking at consciousness, looking at measuring consciousness, looking at what these devices can ultimately tell us about our status of energy and how we're managing stress. So,
right.
And now I actually teach that work as well.
Right. So the device we're talking about mainly there is the GDV. Is that and the BioWell? Am I understanding this is just an advanced version of the GDV?
Yes, you got it right.
Right. And so the GDV is emerged from a digital version of Kirlian photography, right?
Correct.
So maybe you can just explain a little bit about what that is for people who've never heard of it.
Sure. Kirlian photography essentially measures the fact that we have light emission come off of our bodies. But it's not just bodies, it's any living thing. The popular image, I should say, is the phantom leaf, where an image of, or a whole leaf was cut, and then the Kirlians and many others, it hasn't been replicated all that often, but it does happen.
Right.
I have been with John Hubacker at CIHS, and we have done some of this work. It's difficult to replicate, but nevertheless, what it looks at is that the fact that we've got a charge within our system, and it helps to create our biofield. So all of that, it means to say that it's like our light container, and that light container in our biofield contains information.
Right.
And the GDV is one technology that gets that. The BioWell is now the more advanced version of that technology, and it captures this essential light that is emitting off of our body, biophotonic images.
Right. And my understanding is that it does it by pumping a high voltage through the body, low current, kind of like shocking the body with a high voltage, and it sort of captures the discharge. What is it actually capturing? Are they electrons? Are they photons? What's actually being photographed?
Kind of a combination. I think in my deck for you, I have a picture of it, but essentially, yeah, and that's very confusing to people, right? We're talking about high voltage, low current. So it's less than a 9-volt battery. So you don't actually even feel it, which doesn't feel so good if you touch your tongue to a 9-volt battery, right? We're not talking anything like that. So in the early days of messing with the GDV at school, there were versions of it that did shock you. And then we figured out that you had to be grounded. So now those grounds are actually built in, and they don't cause a shock. And what's actually happening is that there's a CCD camera, and the CCD camera is taking multiple thousands of pictures per millisecond. And that gets layered as a result of the charged emissions, which is kind of a combination of biophotons and like an electron cloud. So in that capturing, they turn to pixels. Those pixels contain information. So the adjacent technology to this is using a photomultiplier, and where you have to sit stationary and very still while the photomultiplier takes the emission images, and you're literally counting the photons that come off, and it's very difficult to sit there in a static position holding it for any length of time, and you need a dark room to do it.
Right. How well received or validated by the medical allopathic field is GDV BioWell?
In our country, not so well, because we have a limitation, of course, of our integral agencies that prevent a lot of these sort of subtle energy devices from being able to catch hold. And I want to be very clear that many countries do use this type of technology diagnostically. We don't say anything to that effect here in the US. It is looking at these pixels built on the shoulders of giants that have been measuring these types of fields and these emissions to create a map, if you will. So we're using the Sujok hand system, the Korean hand system, the TCM 5-element theory, and the Jingwell points. So it's multiple systems that essentially tell a very similar story about the map inside the body from looking at the meridians. The meridians end at the fingertips, so that's why we actually take an image of, it's not an image of the fingertips, but we use the fingertips to actually make the capture.
Right. how much do you think this is going to, like, where are we going with this? Is it going to be accepted? Is this, obviously you're working with Melinda and Caitlin on the NCCOEP.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at, that acronym. And which is, they've collected 15,000 research papers together to validate energy medicine, and the aspects. What is it you think is so difficult for the medical model to understand about this movement of energy medicine?
So, well, we have in the U.S. a for-profit model for healthcare, and on the scientific side, so that creates an argument a little bit, because we're talking about, from an energy medicine perspective, is putting responsibility back in the user's hands. For us to know ourselves is really an essential, and that's part of what my master's thesis is about as well, and looking at some of the physiology that's having to do with. Science essentially doesn't believe anything it can't see. So even though we're using a model within the science of GDV, which has been well established, this is going back to the early 1800s, and even earlier than that, from things that hold a static charge. Once you can even measure something that holds a static charge, you're talking about, there must be something that is a complement to it. And so that was picked up from amber, and that's actually where the electrostatic started to actually build its basis of knowledge from. And then, if you walk around on carpet where there's any kind of change of barometric pressure or something, you can shock yourself for other people, and that's it. That's the buildup of charge that we're measuring.
And how does this relate? We had Jim Ushman on the show the other week, and obviously his work has been in earthing for a long time.
Yes.
And so he's interested in increasing the amount of electrons in the body. Is that the same as increasing the charge?
Well, we want to be able to hold that charge. So what the BioWell is doing, or this type of technology, is looking at how well is our bio battery being able to hold that charge.
Nice.
Because if you've got a lot of light leakage, which is what stress ultimately creates, when that's been proven over and over again with biophoton and other technologies, that we actually leak light when we're super stressed. So to answer your question more directly, yes, we want to be able to keep the charge of negative ions, and that's like food to our body.
Right. So
that is a very important aspect of keeping ourselves healthy, is how well do our cells actually hang on to that charge. And I want to go back and answer your other question about validation. I don't know that we will ever see a very satisfactory method of validating at least this technology. What I had to do on my own is, through a medical fellowship I was doing in something called endobiogeny, which was studying the endocrine system and looking at the multiple parameters that we looked at with CBC, with differential in blood, and stool, saliva. I did that for about 2.5 years with the fellows, and also brought them into the lab, did some testing. So I got to see this for 2.5 years of building this type of understanding. So to me, it's been very validated. From a clinical aspect, I'm quite satisfied.
Right. So
I train a lot of physicians on how to use this.
Yes. With regards to this notion of light, it's interesting because the light leakages are clearly a thing. How does that connect to this notion of shining with kind of health? Because when you see certain healthy people, they do shine, and I don't know whether it's a psychological thing or a physiological thing.
I would say both, because the psychological leads to the physiology.
Okay. So but aren't they? You're saying, aren't they shining light? Aren't they emitting light? Isn't that like light leakage?
No. So thank you for that. An opportunity to deal with a discrepancy, or what looks like a discrepancy.
Yeah.
When we're leaking light, it looks like you're limp, like a flower that hasn't had enough water. If you are having good boundaries, let's say that from a psychological point of view, as well as doing things such as earthing to juice up your field, then you're using that light container to keep its charge. When we're light leaking, we're losing our charge. So therein lies the subtlety.
But don't we emanate light? And isn't emanating light a good thing? I seem to remember Fritz Pop saying that the more light that comes out, the better. Like.
Well, that depends on what you're. I don't know that that's what his literature said.
In terms of like the healthier something is, the more biophotons it emits.
Well, actually, I believe it to be the opposite. With the studies that we've done at CIHS, the more light leakage, the more biophotons that we can count leaking out of a person, that is to a level of stress.
Okay. And have you done any research where healers sort of like turn it on and like, all right, I'm going now. And what happens to the light coming out then?
Yeah, so it actually, and this is why we need other technologies other than just a photomultiplier to be able to see this, because, well, what's the cause for their more light to be coming out? It's intention and motivation and what we're doing, right? So if I'm going to focus as a healer, if I'm going to focus my intention on something, then I'm wanting that light to go there. I don't necessarily want the light to come from me. I want to be the hollow bone from which it travels through.
Right. So
but yes, you would see that. So
okay. So that, I think that was what I'm remembering here in the Pop studies that I remember. I think he was looking at healers turning it on and off. It was around the time when they were doing it with the squid as well, and Sato and all that.
Yes, and it's an important differentiator because you do need to know what it is that you're measuring. So we brought healthy people into the lab and super stressed people into the lab. And then we also took super healthy people that got stressed and watched what the differences were. And the increase in biophoton leakage was when the healthy person had stress.
Right. How does this light leakage absorption relate to sunlight and the vitamin D and maybe that people are now staying in all the time? And
it's not great that we're staying in. When the very essence of vitamin D is to help boost our immune system. And to me, we're doing the exact opposite of what we need to be doing, really. We need herd immunity to be able to help us through this thing like COVID-19, SARS-CoV-19. It kind of defies logic a little bit about that consideration. And getting out in the sun is absolutely hugely transformational to our biofield. It's once again, it's that analogy of if you haven't watered a plant, it gets limp, and if it hasn't had enough light, it gets limp. Well, we have that same photosynthesis going on within ourselves as well.
And can we have too much water? Because I overwatered a plant the other day. It didn't like it.
That's right.
So is that
we can do too much of everything.
Right, so that relates to too much light?
Yes, you could say that. Okay. And because a plant that is necessarily just like us, would I go out in high noon every single day and stay out there for 3 hours? Well, especially not being a redhead, I'm super sensitive to do that. So there's limitations, at the Temple of Delphi in ancient Egypt, it says, know thyself and nothing in excess, right? So, and to thy own self be true. Yeah. So we need to know ourselves in this regard.
Good ISIS reference there. I like it. Good. So then, what are you doing nowadays? You're seeing clients with the BioWell, and what else are you doing?
I'm also training people how to use this. I have a real. I'm not super salesy. That's not where I come from. I do distribute the BioWell, but it's an unselfish thing where I want even kids to be able to use the language of energy to be able to see when something goes on in the dynamics that shift in a household. Yeah. So you can see where the stress actually starts to lead. And I can show you some images here when we get there.
Yeah. I think that would be a great idea to show us some images so people get to understand, and maybe you can do a little bit of interpretation. I don't know what you've got planned, but all open to see whatever you've got.
Yeah, okay. So I'll just, we didn't plan on necessarily showing super stressed and unstressed, but I'll show you essentially,
whatever,
in a nutshell, what that looks like. Yeah. Let me just get to this spot. So.
And I have to do my seamless transition at some point. which is...
I'm ready to share when you are.
Okay, you can come on and share, and I will transition it when...
Okay, great. There we go.
Okay. Interesting. So...
Uh-oh. It's got... Uh-oh, hang on a second. It's doing...
Oh, it's doing audio. I wondered why it was so small.
It's doing subtitles.
Yeah.
Hang on, let me turn that off. That's hilarious. Okay, where do I turn off subtitles? Here we go. Got it. It's not... Oh, here. I got it. Sorry about that.
Yeah, it's all right. It's the tech.
It is tech.
It's great
but at
tech.
least I knew where to go to figure it out. So we're good. All right. Awesome.
Okay.
Okay. Essentially, this is what... Are we good to go, Markabadi?
We are good to go. I'm just... I'm resizing your image as we speak, but you don't have to worry about that.
Okay.
You carry on.
Beautiful. So this is essentially what a corona discharge from a finger looks like. And that light capturing, if we were to put it into slow-mo and be able to put a camera there, which is what the CCD camera is, but to be able to capture that, that's a bit of an illustration of that. This is an actual corona discharge. By the way, looks a little bit like some flares of stress. So to me, what's actually happening is that this is a combination of where physics and chemistry actually meets. So this that we're looking at here is essentially how these broken bits that you see in the person's field, this is the before of a sound meditation experience. We want to see this beautiful, that kind of blue that's right there, if you can see where my cursor is moving.
Yes.
We want to see that nice and homogeneously. Oh, sorry. We want to see that nice and evenly all the way around the body. So where we see these broken up lines and all of that, that is what stress looks like. This person still has a lot of energy. Sometimes when it's a super, super very tight, narrow energy close to the body, the energy is lacking. So there's a way of seeing that as well. We literally measure joules. So this is literally also measuring stress. So the before is the orange line, and the colorful bar on the bottom is the scale. So the orange line, you can see this is the measurement of stress, and it's in medium. I have measured people that are a 10 out of 10. And then the energy, the overall energy in joules is this number here. So what I was saying is that this person still has energy. They're still essentially in the optimal.
Sorry, what is this measuring? What are the bars?
Joules, literally the energy joules coming off of the all together, all of the what I was showing before, all of the pixels here are information.
And you can get the wonderful. You can get the actual data.
It's quantitative data.
Excellent.
So the number of joules, which I didn't put here on this slide, you can see is 58.8. And then after the approximate 9-minute sound meditation, it went to 59.26. Well, if you let a person bake a little bit longer, it would be ideal then to take the measurement. But I had to do this measurement kind of right away. So, which is, you should let 15 to 20 minutes go by before you remeasure a person. But nevertheless, you're able to see the significant change in the stress level output here. And we want to go more into the optimal zone. So in 9 minutes, this was, able to affect a major change. And this also speaks to the brain hemispheres. How well are they communicating with each other? And we're not looking at those quantitative numbers here, but in the overall aggregate total of what we're seeing, that is part of the results. The balance in this tab or in this area here is speaking to the balance of left right symmetry.
Right.
So, this is a very important aspect in Chinese medicine and in most um, ancient systems, most whole person systems, Tibetan, native, etc., Ayurveda.
Yeah.
The organ's disbalance speaks to, so this person is in fight, flight, or fright stress. So when we're seeing this, you can see really high nervous system charge. And this coming, the purple line is after the sound experience. And you can see how then it immediately went into an optimal phase.
Mm.
So this is, being able to see that we can do something very quickly to turn around our consciousness. And to look at this, the size of the where the placement of the chakras is represented in the color of the balls here, and you can see that there's also a size difference. So, like I said, this person had energy, but she was dealing with a lot of stress, feeling helpless. And on the left side of the body, which is the right side of the screen, this is representing more of an internal conversation, not feeling super empowered. And then when we see after, it's like this person is ready to take charge and actually do something.
Right.
So that's essentially what I wanted to just give a visual to for what we're talking about.
Great.
Yeah, so I'll stop sharing here. There's much more we can go into, but we'll follow your lead.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. No, I mean it's great that the technology seems to have advanced to the point where I remember when I saw the GDV, I couldn't get the raw data out. So I'm liking the fact that you're getting numbers of each of the flare points.
Oh, definitely. And it's much easier to extract from the BioWell than it is from the older technology.
So what's happening in, like, what is the energy that's coming from us? And I get that, like, I suppose my question is, like, instead of it being a medical model where the pharmaceutical industry is there, and the reason why we don't have energy in medicine might be best answered by Healing in Politics, that book, and the notion of you can't sell energy and different things like that. But what's really happening with the energy, and how does it interact with our psyche?
So, well, one of the things that actually appreciate the question, and one of the things that actually took me to graduate seminary is this curiosity of where was our conscious focus ultimately, and what did it do to our field? So my interest is, well, what happens out here in our fields? I'm trying not to make my arms be super wide, but it's as far
remember
as my arms will
you've
go.
got this. Yeah.
My field's a bit bigger than that, and
Right.
so is everybody else's. If they're not, they're closer to death than being alive. So the field contains this information, as I mentioned earlier. Some people are exquisitely sensitive to picking up on that type of information. The healers, the people who are energy medicine practitioners, etc. So the psychology is also what is that information that has been programmed into our field, has been based on prior experiences. And this gets into the level of our conscious awareness and how it is that we are perceiving our external environment. Is it a threat? Is it calm and safe? And I myself had to learn to rewire my nervous system because I didn't grow up in a safe household.
Right.
So this was something for me to come into, well, where is my own empowerment with being able to choose the conditions in which do my cells hold charge, or am I so stressed and my system is so out of whack that energy can't stay contained? So you asked earlier, what is the energy? It's energy is a definition, is the ability for an organism to do work. So if we, and in thermography, when we're looking at certain color patterns, we're looking at some of those color patterns to give us information based on the laws of thermodynamics. Where there is heat, there is work. So those are just based in Newton's principles in general. And then if we apply more energy medicine properties to our thinking about what is our psychology, what is our emotional set point, how well do we feel in charge of our own conditions in life? Who's driving the bus, so to
Right.
speak?
Who is driving the bus?
Hopefully, it's us individually. This is what Carl Jung spoke to, the power of individuation that is so dynamic and important. And this is one of the reasons why I think that, really coming into the time of being our own guru.
Right.
And if you have a teacher, beautiful, but this is also about the empowerment of self. Well, who is the self? Well, that needs to be defined. Most of us have learned conditional belonging in our lifetimes.
Yeah. And I think also society has kind of programmed us to assume that empowerment comes from like stuff that we get out there. Like if I earn money, or if I earn fame, or if I earn, that gives me back the empowerment. But where does the power really come from?
So thank you. I actually like to use the metaphor of operating from an old power paradigm. Like, do you want to be a coal miner today, or do you want to be a solar, a tube of light, right?
Yeah.
So, and there's an old paradigm where there's people still dying from being coal miners, right? So there's this one sort of idea of power source that's what we needed. We need these things to define us. We need these ideals based on other people's labels or what's important. And they can drive you until they decide that they don't drive you. And I think that's some of the beautiful aspects of what's happening in this reset with people coming more even into their own internal space. Yes, we will get outside and get the sun again and hang out with people that we know and love. But at the same time, we're getting to really feel what's important to us. This resetting, how's it going to feel now between getting work done in your home to then going and sitting in your car and sitting in traffic like you did? Is that rat race may feel a little different to you now because the set point is changed.
Right. So what are people to do with this? Like, how are they best to harness their reconnecting with their inner power, as opposed to always looking for it external validation? What's their root?
One of the things that I teach around this, first of all, there's so many answers to that question, but one of the sort of on-ramps, if you will, to this idea is getting off of the drama triangle, getting off of the source of where you're looking outside yourself for that sense of empowerment, for that sense of belonging, and coming back into, well, what is your priority? And we need to have our own set of focuses. And I actually want to interrupt that answer and go someplace that breaks down a paradigm a little bit from an age-old time. And that is Penfield Wilder spoke about that the mind is not in the brain, right? But the brain is like an antenna and can give us a lot of information. So that which we're programming, etc., into our brain. The triune brain model is the hindbrain is the back head area, the reptilian brain, if you will. I have a couple slides on this. I should pull them up so I can give people an opportunity to be able to see what it is I'm talking about. So let me do that.
And of course, I'll do a seamless transition.
This going back and forth. You're brilliant.
Okay.
Oops. Hang on.
That's a beautiful picture.
Yes, it's meaningful. Okay, so when we think about the survival element, which is really the drama triangle that I was just speaking to, it's that sense of power is coming from how we make money. Is it on the backs of other people, or are we actually feeling very much inspired? It can be usually, I'm not going to say that the inspirations don't happen in both ways, because they do. However, when we are thinking more about the well-being, we're usually inspired in an altruistic way. if we're wired and coming from the power of only survival, then that is less altruistic. It's more usually somebody has to win, and that's that survival mentality, is that somebody has to win.
Right.
And our lives depended on it before, but we still have this wiring, right? Because if you didn't get that hunt, you didn't eat. So that's where that old brain wiring is, the oldest cortex. So then in the limbic system, I'm sorry, I said Penfield Wilder, I meant to say Paul MacLean. Okay. Paul MacLean is the person who authored this as the mammalian structure of the brain. Right. And I'm going someplace different than this, but nevertheless, I'm building on this platform.
Yes.
The limbic system is the middle brain where emotions start to come online.
Right.
And then where we start to, have some more feeling sense. And then the neocortex is more executive thinking, higher order thinking. So, I just, some of us have a hamster that's running the show. It's that default mode network where you're just going round and round and round. And that can be the inner critic. That can be different things that we have as patterns of based on survival. Oops. This is how we operate.
Sorry, so, I've ruined the stream. Let me get it back.
Oh.
I've lost that. Hold on, I'm coming back to you. I had to start something again. Okay, you're back.
Do I need to go back?
No, it was only for that one moment.
Oh, okay. So if we realize that we've got this old hind brain, of course, it's still part of our wiring. And we also want to bring online our emotional IQ, if you will, our intelligence to be able to use ourselves in an emotionally balanced way. Mm. And then the frontal cortex. So my model is you want to know your history. You want to know where you come from. And then the middle cortex is know thyself. You want to know what governs your patterns. When you see this type of behavior, when you get angry, etc., there are things that sort of excite the system. Well, then now it becomes about choice.
Right.
Where am I going? Am I going to do that same old thing that I have been doing? Or am I going to advance myself on the path and choose a new direction? And that is the critical thinking. So all three of these go together. We need to know our history because we need to know how we're wired. And then knowing ourselves, speaking to our emotional set points, and then knowing where we're going. That has to do with our conscious choice.
Is that middle cortex? Is that the limbic system that you're talking about there?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
That's correct. And there's a map to the emotional body from what I see from a healer and clairvoyance perspective. There's a map to how it is that at the levels of consciousness, this is to your point earlier, weaving that back in, where what's happening in the field from a psychological measure, how we're using energy. Well, it takes a lot of energy to live in structures of manipulation. It takes a lot of energy to constantly be angry or have your nervous system at such a charge.
Right.
So we want to be able to have an awareness to be able to choose what it is that we actually want. This takes work. I am not saying that this is like, oh, okay, I got the concept and let's go. Yeah. This actually really does take work, and that's why I teach something called the drama triangle, which leads you. I was downloaded an answer off the drama triangle, which is a whole other thing that we could get into on maybe one of your other days.
Yeah. Well, actually, I do want to talk about the triad of things. Okay. Have you more slides that you want us to go through at the moment?
No, we can come out of this.
Okay, cool. And then I'll have to do a seamless transition again. What has come up for me and a lot in these conversations is this notion of three, of the Trinity, of the triad, the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, the yin yang bit in the middle, blah blah blah. And I noticed that you had your triad, your Trinity, and just to give some outline, it seems like the real magic happens in the universe when we take something with something else and harmonize them together so that they create a third separate point. And I know that in meditation, one of the, you know, main postures for going and traveling through the third eye into awareness is a unification of the Ida and the Pingala up through into the third eye. What have you got to say about this with regards to the brain and trinities and stuff like that?
Love the question, and that brings me to my master's thesis, which is another triadic point, right? So I don't have the image here to share, but maybe if we can get on this topic at another time.
Yeah.
I found an image at it was the Church of Ascension, which was at the Kremlin in Moscow. Huh. And they were in the midst of redoing this church. It hadn't been open. It was first built in the 1500s, and then it closed in the late 1700s. I happened to be there when they were just opened it and starting to do the refurbishments.
In the 1500s?
Say again?
In the 1500s?
No. That's when it first opened.
Right.
Then again, it stayed opened until the 1700s. It had not been open since the 1700s.
Wow.
I was there in 2010 or 11, I forget which year exactly. But what I found on the ceiling, so this is the Church of Ascension, which has dedicated to Archangel Gabriel. Mm-hmm. Archangel Gabriel is noted in the historic texts as being the archangel that gave Mother Mary the information that she was going to give birth to baby Jesus. Mm-hmm. And so there was a triad. I had never seen a halo in any of the other artwork, and I had already been there for a month and done every museum I could.
Right.
You only see circles. This was the only museum, or not museum, church, where I saw on the ceiling a triad of these points. So what is so fascinating about this is that what was the thoughts that were leading me on my, and I do have another slide, so you'll do another seamless transition in a second. But
just give me notice.
Yes, the details of this Alta Major chakra, which is something that was really important as this triadic structure that was speaking to me. And I just kept finding evidence here and there and everywhere. Also with this, there's a magic of threes. I totally agree with you.
Right.
So the Alta Major chakra is this little known chakra in the back head. And here, let's do your seamless transition.
I'm ready.
So that
I'm ready.
We can give people a
anytime.
visual.
It won't even be a microsecond in the transition of seamlessness.
Fantastic. Love it. So for this point, I'll just stay on this image rather than, actually, no, I won't. Let me go back. Sorry. Don't get sick. There. So when we look at this triad of points, and to what you were just speaking to as well, is the Ida Pingala, this has to do with the movement of energy in our own systems. So we want to be able to keep that charge. This is also what's meant by the collection of Kundalini energy, but we don't want to just go awaken these energy centers without some conscious awareness to what it is that we're doing, because we can cause problems with that as well. So the Alta Major chakra is known as a minor chakra, but it acts like a major chakra. And this is left out of a lot of teachings, and it's left out on purpose. Even in traditional Chinese medicine, when you're learning to start to needle the back head, do 16 is this point. You don't needle it because you can really cause damage, significant damage to a person. But this is this point, and it's known as the mouth of God in several cosmologies, or whatever the translation of that is. It's where inspiration comes in. And if you know Eileen McCusick, who's a friend of ours, many of us, who has created biofield tuning, she calls it her mail slot. And as I have talked with many people who are clairvoyants, they feel this energy in the back of their head as they're getting a stimulus for going this direction or going that direction. That actually helps to tell this story. So I'll back up to the third part, which is the vagus nerve.
Right.
So these three areas have a direct, major information highways. Let's say. So the vagus nerve innervates. It's known as the wanderer or the 10th cranial nerve, and it innervates every single organ in the system. And so what this is actually doing, which we now know, I only intuited when I was writing my thesis, that I believe that it's the byway and the highway to the gut-brain connection. And we now know that there's the enteric nervous system. We've always known that, but we didn't know the nerve stimulus that it traveled upon, afferently and efferently. That means up and down. And so that ability for us to gain information, the vagus nerve is hugely important with being able to bring relaxed or stress, whatever the signal is, to the body. Energy is energy. It's just neutral. It matters what we do with it.
I have a question on this front, because something that happened with me was when I came across Jerry Pollack's work with the fourth phase of water, and speaking about proticity and the flow of protons in the exclusion zone. I don't want to get too complex for those listening, but what I want to ask about is the exclusion zone is a buffer area with the coherent structure of water. And then on the other side of the exclusion zone, you've got hydrogen, a lot of hydrogen ions, free and loose moving because of the way the water is matricized. And so you've got protons, hydrogen ions, protons. So you've got proton flow on one side. And then on the other side, you've got all the connective tissue, the collagen fibers. Jim Oshman says a living matrix, which is conductive. So you've got electrons flowing through there. Where is the third point between the electron negative flow and the hydrogen ions positive flow? And is that connected in any way to your work with this sort of bilateral movement?
I appreciate where you're going with that. And the easy answer right now, or hard answer really, is I don't know. That we have the ability to be able to look at this in a holistic way yet. And funny enough, I was with Gerald Pollack at the time of being in Russia. So we weren't at the Kremlin together, but we were in St. Petersburg together. So I got to see that presentation of when he was just demonstrating the exclusion zone. And quite possibly this has a lot to do because in the nature of my thesis, I'm dealing a lot with the fascia and used Oshman's work in order to be able to tell that story. We're crystalline structures, and that probably has a lot to do with how it is that we are also holding our charge.
Yes.
To the extent that the nervous system is able to hold that charge, because what stress does is it makes a repelling thing. So we don't necessarily have, it would be interesting to use Pollack's work in his lab. And there is a neuroscientist that I know there, and I'll have to ask, are they measuring, taking samples from really stressed people as a serum or a way of doing some measurements, and being able to see that in a relaxed person, much in the same way that we did with the biophoton leakage.
Exactly, yeah.
What is it that we see?
Shall we stop the screen share now?
Sure.
I'm realizing we're coming close to the end, and you were talking, and I wanted to have your lovely being on the screen as you were sharing that. So what do you think really is going on in this unification of twos into the triad? Like what happened? What's so magical about it?
The twos into the triad, like what's magical about?
There seems to be a phenomenon where you take the duality and you blend it together in such a way that it creates a harmonic resonance of a third, unseen previously, element, consciousness, energy.
So what I would say to that is this notion of complementarity. In physics, it means that you have opposites in that dualistic nature. And this is something that if you follow Carl Kalaman's work or Barbara Handclough, when we're speaking about the level of consciousness that we have access to right now as humans comes in waves. And since the Mayan calendar gave us a lot of the roadmaps, if you will, for let's say an awakening of our consciousness, we're in what is called the ninth wave. It's still the duality. Now, what gets turned on, in my view, around this is is it just only a duality? Like you can see complementarity as being a conductive force, if you will, in our lives, where there is a challenge that we're dealing with. But as soon as we thank that challenge, we're shifting our energy to realize everything is happening good in our life. So the third element to which I'm deriving some of in taking your question to a different level or a different place potentially. Yeah. I apologize if I am, but this is just
great.
how I'm seeing
That's what it's about.
The opposites of being, let's say, angry to calm, or where we go into the emotions as being part of our charge system, if you will, because they really are, but they're also the gunpowder to our being able to be creative. So we can use it as a destruction, or we can use it to be complementary. And that complementarity is a thing unto itself that needs the two opposition, the plus minus, the negative positive. It needs that polarity of forces is needed in order to come up with the third. And that involves, I believe, consciousness.
Right. Lovely.
That's what I believe.
Wow. What a great rundown, Tiffany. It's been amazing. Thanks for coming on and being your wonderful self. You've got some good links for us. I believe that there's a GDV, the BioWell. There's a training course that's normally only for people who have purchased the machine, but people can now get it for free, right?
Well, they can come into the training and see what it's all about. So if they weren't ready to jump in and make a purchase or do anything like that, it's a good way just to pop in and see if this is something of interest to you.
Nice. And we're going to post those links underneath. And what else that people can get their own BioWell?
Sure. Yes, all of that you can find that on my website. More information is also there. I think I had given you a link on just learning more about it.
Yeah. I will. You posted a couple of links to me. I'll send them on.
And there's also, if for anybody from a medical intuitive side needs, I do 15-minute free consults. So if there's something that I can do, I don't necessarily do a parlor trick in 15 minutes, give somebody a life reading. That's not the point. But if there's something that can be dealt with, that a person needs some care and that's concerning them, I'm happy to walk them through it. And the last piece on the BioWell is that Constantine, the inventor, just made a sale go on for empowering people to be able to see their own energy. And that's a super important thing at this time of COVID. So BioWell never goes on sale. This is a rare event. So if you were ever thinking about that technology, now would be the time.
Wonderful. And then how can people find you, apart from Facebook?
Healandthrive.com.
Heal and Thrive.
Heal and Thrive.
Oh, wow. I always remember how wonderful your library was. It was all labeled. Yes. I was so jealous. It was labeled, everything. It was like being in an esoteric bookstore. It was fantastic. Tiffany, thank you so much for coming on. We're going to bring on Dr. Benjamin Mather. Let's see. I seem to have more than who's Abby? Oh, hi Abby. I don't know, Abby. I don't know how to add you here. Okay, let's see what Abby's got to say. Maybe she wants to talk to you. So let's see. Hi Abby. Have you got a question for Tiffany? Abby, hello. Did you just call in accidentally?
It says connecting to audio.
Connecting to audio. Yes. Abby, are you here? No. Abby, you got to be ready. All right. Off you go then, Abby. Bye. Okay. Benjamin Mather. And again, another seamless transition. As soon as the video starts. Seamless transition. Got to start your video, Ben. Okay, let's get you off mute. You're unmuted. Start your video so I can do a seamless transition.
Thank you so much for having me, Markabadi.
It's been so welcome. Ben, come on in. Benjamin. Let's see.
Start video.
Okay, hold on. Oh, seamless transition. Almost. Of course, you two can't see the seamless transitions. You'll have to see it in the video afterwards. But I split the screen in threes like that. And then, anyway. Tiffany, this is Benjamin.
Hello, Benjamin.
Hey, how are you?
Pleasure. I look forward to hearing more about what you do.
Sure. Thank you for your amazing talk.
Oh, you were chimed into it. Brilliant. Thank you.
It was, yeah, it was great.
Very cool. I'm sure there's some intersecting points with what you're about to discuss as well.
A little bit, maybe.
Okay, very good.
All right, Tiffany, thank you so much for coming on. It's been such a pleasure seeing you again, and stay safe down in Encinitas Way.
Thank you. You too. And Benjamin, you as well. Thank you so much, Markabadi, for having me part of your CommUNITY.
Oh, such a pleasure. Such a pleasure. Thanks for all your work.
All right. I'll see you online.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
All right. Seamless transition. And there's your name. Like magic. Like magic, Benjamin Matter. How are you, brother?
That wallpaper's amazing.
It's not wallpaper. It's my new backdrop. But by the way, you can see this stuff, Benjamin, but nobody else can. Nobody else can see this. So
I can't see that bit.
What, you can't see this?
I can see you grabbing your curtain.
Right. Nobody can see that curtain except you.
Right. I
You're
see.
special.
They can only just see.
They can see this.
There.
They see this of me. And they see this of you. Oh, are you on a phone?
Yes, I am.
Turn it sideways, please.
Turn it sideways.
Always landscape, my brother. There we go. We've got some.
All right.
Yeah, you see, you get more of you.
Even more of you.
Even more.
Good. How are you, my man?
Oh gosh. Yeah, I'm good. I'm a little hot, man. It's pumping up heat here. I bet you're not hot in England, are you?
No. I'm struggling with the cold, but it's okay.
It's all right.
It's been an amazing April.
So, I heard all the heat's been up while everyone has to stay inside, but that's been difficult for the Londoners.
Yeah.
You know, all those great parks.
I'm stuck out in Wiltshire actually, and near a beautiful estate called Bowood, so I can get to walk out every day into the beautiful nature and take all of that in. And,
perfect. Perfect.
The true religion that is nature.
By the way, have you shared the video?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes.
Okay.
Took all your instructions, did everything that you
Lovely.
said.
I love your replies to my emails. They were very funny. So let's clarify this because I still don't know. Tell us about your previous qualifications. Who are you? What have you done in your life?
Okay.
I know you don't want to focus on it, but what have you done?
Tried to keep out of trouble as much as I could. Went to I really wanted to go to art school, to be honest, but they said I would never do any well with that or make any money, so went into pharmacy, then went into dentistry, then did 2 Royal College of Surgeons exams in England and Edinburgh to convert to surgery, oral surgery, implants, minor maxillofacial surgeries, and then I did a master's in clinical education after that, which was an excellent one actually, and I really enjoyed that. But it was really about the process of what I'd learned along the way during those experiences that helped shape me and transform me, you know. And what I learned about sort of quality of life and prevention, really, as a means to facilitate within those times.
Okay.
So that was more the experience of what I'd done, who I'd be, and then it sort of led me into looking at more medical anthropology and how we're sort of delivering care and education now, and also I had this strong sort of spiritual beam throughout all of it, where I would be very sort of wondrous in the process, more like a Raja yoga, really just sort of questioning everything all the time. All this discernment that came up, of like, is this the limitation of where it is? Is this only as far as we can go? Why are we repeating the same things over and over again? Why is it that, you know, some patients are healing better than others, and they just seem to be a lot happier than others, and they're healing better? You know, those sort of obvious things that sort of came across that a lot of the science at the time, you know, wasn't answering.
So what did you find out?
Yeah.
Where are you up to now?
So where am I up to now?
Yeah. Did you go back to art school or something?
Yeah. Where am I now? Where
are you up to? What are you doing now? We know your history now. We got you did all your surgeons. You had certain realizations about the way the medical system works, and you looked at the history of medicine coming forwards. Is that what you meant?
Yeah. Medical anthropology, going forwards, yeah.
So then,
and you look at how, you know, Western medicine got its big fame because, you know, it was able to keep people alive for 24 hours very effectively.
Right.
You know, things like antibiotics and antiemetics during the war came around. Aspirin happened as a default. But, you know, in my pharmacy degree, I had a very interesting professor of toxicology say one amazing thing, which completely was one of the tracks that sent me on different ways, was that 90% of medical intervention or movement forward occurred from chance, and 10% was theory. You know, and it's just huge that we still keep in our minds, you know, that we can work things out with the mind, right, and keep working things out in order to make progress. And that's kind of what the shift has been for me, to transition out of that, because I got very mindy about things. I even got mindy about spiritual meetings, you know, and trying to get education across in a mindy way, like how can we build in different strategies and paradigms and everything like this, when really, you know, the beauty of a lot of these educational leaders and spiritual leaders was that they were sat there very patiently, right, and very with a very good listening tone and observant, with something else about them. They were transcending something else. And for me, really, that led me to the fact that, you know, I wanted to be in the place, not only for the people around me and embodiment of that, but also into the place where I'm the reality beyond the reality. Right, so actually going beyond the mind and trying to keep and live in that space.
Tell us about that.
Sorry?
Tell us about the beyond the mind space.
Well, you know, and in order to get there beyond the mind space, you know, there was one person really, you know, and I had met a lot of alternative healers on the way. My mother was big into alternative healing, so from a young age I was in homeopathy, Reiki, all of these sort of things, kinesiology, acupuncture, massage, and, you know, a lot of these were adding to my portfolio of the way that I treated, cared for patients, and ran my basically beliefs about you know, the way I'd run surgery or whatever. And within that space there, in came my soul sister, which was amazing, said, you've got to try this breathwork girl, Katia Bustani. And she said within 2 sessions, there's something there about you, there's something different. And I said, well, I've always felt there's something different. But she said, no, there really is. And she ended up, well, she now is, you know, like a sister and my business partner and everything. Amazing woman, amazing girl.
This is Katia.
Sorry?
This is Katia, who is now your business partner.
Katia, yeah. And she said one thing, another amazing thing to me, which was basically, Ben, you know, you could choose joy and bliss. And I'm like, what? You're like, yeah, no, life's hard, it's suffering. I've worked really hard for all this stuff. You know, it's going to get better when? It's going to get better in the future. As long as I have these things around me, it's going to be better for me. Right. You know, because that's what was promised. That was what's on the cards, right? And she said, you know, well, how's that going for you? You know,
that old question. I love those questions.
Yeah. And it was from and you know, and then she sort of had seemed to, you know, the community with her and around her seemed to have these sort of Jedi-like qualities. you know, like they were kind of just really in their peace. They had found their peace. And, you know, it was just, I just wanted to be, you know, be around Jedis and X-Men rather than people talking about, you know, private pension plans and golf handicaps. You know, it was really boring.
Right.
Not that that's important for them, and that's fine, and that's all good for everyone, you know, but I just found those sort of people much more stimulating. And also those skills that they have. We'd go into restaurants together, and she would just basically get the best table in the house, right, without doing much, but just actually looking straight into the eyes of, you know, the waitress, and really connecting with her, right? And so I kind of wanted to develop, you know, those sort of skills and see what that was about. And I went down this pathway, basically, of rebirthing breathwork. And rebirthing breathwork is an amazing pranayama yoga type, you know, that allows you to connect the breath and find the space between the breath. So it's the power of the breath within the breath, and that power within the breath obviously is the divine source, or the God, you know, or infinite eternal energy.
Obviously.
And, you know, that access to that is one of the components of, you know, healing, of course, you know, and healing these multiple consciousness levels or traumas that you have throughout your life that then make you the person that you think you are, and getting out of the way of yourself. So it then goes to me to, you know, be a healer. I'm born it, you know, kind of, that's my vocation. I've chosen healing, or education of healing at some stage. And, you know, I then look at healing in a 180 perspective way, that it's, you know, we're very austere about our deaths, aren't we? We're very austere about dying. Well, why can't we just change it and actually say we're immortal until we choose death? You know, like, what is it preventing us from seeing healing as a you know, illness as a healing opportunity, yeah, rather than, you know, it's going to come to an end, and therefore, you know, death's going to be the final door.
I think the issue comes where people don't feel that that power exists within them. They feel it's something external to them, and everything in society tells us that.
Correct, Prof. Yeah, you've got it. And so then you know, what you're doing then as a healer then is to change or shift that over, and within the limitations of the scientific or medical field that I could work in, I saw that was then becoming limited for me. I couldn't actually empower the person to take control for themselves, you know, the patient, client, individual, to take control of their own healing and their own energy body, right? Which is more important, and their most emotional mind. So if we then go into all of these sort of things and what's causing death, you know, it then goes, you know, and I don't really want to keep too science about it, because I think with a lot of the science you then go back into left brain, analytical mind, and all the rest of it. And actually I'm quite interested in, you know, not having the answers so much, but having ideas, because I've just learned theory after theory after theory, and everything's a theory until you put things into practice. Right. And I'm really interested at delivering, you know, life for everyone, and shifting humanity in that capacity as best I can.
So what else is there? You've got mind, emotions.
So the three things before death, you know, are ignorance, okay, which is obviously captured in the mind. Poor diet, yeah, and you know, if you're still eating meat, you really need to question sort of what you're doing and what pathway or what enlightenment you're on, because you know there's a lot of dead energy in the meat, etc. Like, yeah. And then the second one is this amazing thing that no one's really got to, apart from this chap called Leonard Orr, which I had the, you know, absolute pleasure of meeting 2 or 3 times, and the guy was completely blessed, and he'd spent a lot of time in India with Babaji investigating this concept called physical immortality consciousness. And he then believed that emotional energy pollution was the second part of the trio, okay? So basically, our chakras that are spinning, etc., will pick up other people's emotions when we're around, for example, when you're sitting on a plane, and you pick up all that yucky energy and you feel like death at the end of it, and you feel really depressed. There's all that sort of stuff, right? But also, you've also got your own 8 biggies as well, okay? You've got your birth traumas, you've got your parental disapproval syndrome, you've got your karmic debt from previous lives, you've got, senility consciousness to deal with when you get older, you've got religious trauma, you've got school traumas as well, okay? And, in a very simple way, this started to all make sense. It can't be quantified or measured in a scientific way, but it actually starts to realize.
Well, some people would debate that, whether it can be measured. I mean, Tiffany is working with measurement devices.
Yes, yeah, well, it certainly is. And then there's the amazing work by Fanny Van Leer as well, who wrote with Leonard, who's doing intelligence, emotional bioflow, and she's now looking with doctors, psychologists, at the impact of the third technique of breathing, which is nasal breathing with a person, and the emotional effects within the body that change the intellect and the energy source.
Okay. So breathing seems to be a big key for the work that you.
Breathing's one of them. So there's to heal the emotional energy pollution, you have to do 5 or 6 major things. Okay. One is the mind, okay, which is mantra yoga, Maha Mantra, Om Namah Shivaya, okay?
Right.
Saying the word of God, or actually saying, having that beautiful energy around you creates a space for the mind to still and that kind of energy to come in.
What makes it beautiful as opposed to just saying iPhone charger, iPhone charger, iPhone charger?
But I think you had a guy on about Sanskrit and the power of Sanskrit.
Lots, right? And then we've got Jeffrey Armstrong on Friday, who is probably the world's leading non-Indian Sanskrit knowledge person.
Well, I mean, the power behind the word of iPhone hasn't got much, energy or materialized grounding.
How dare you, iPhone?
I beg your pardon.
iPhone. Okay, so but that's what I mean. Like what distinguishes it? What's the difference? What's really happening?
If you break down Om Namah Shivaya, right? It's infinite intelligence, which is the male part, infinite energy, which is the female part, and infinite manifestation, which is the abundance of everything, or all the possibility, the tree of life.
So it's because it's the origin language of most of the language we're using.
Yeah, absolutely. But also, I think it resonates with a lot of power. I mean, Om itself, right? Is the universal 528 hertz frequency. Yeah. So you're delivering that kind of oneness with,
Okay, cool. Okay, so we got mantra.
So we got mantra, which is mind, and then we've got affirmations which go in there as well. Then we've got air, okay, which is the breathing. Okay, so conscious connected breathing. Even 20 connected breaths, learning the 20 connected breaths can actually re-nourish your blood system and nervous system just like that, okay?
Do you like the Wim Hof breath? Do you like the Wim Hof stuff?
Wim Hof, exactly. He's done amazing things to create breathing awareness, as so many others have, and it's amazing. When you actually go into the details of all of it, which I'm quite a stickler for now because I've been studying for 6 years, is that a lot of these things are still based, and these breathing techniques are on the stimulatory pathway, which Tiffany was talking about, which, they hit the stomach through mouth breathing and stimulate the vagus nerve, okay? And they cause these stimulatory effects. But if you're not doing breath with these other elements that I'm going to tell you about, then you kind of go, yeah, breathing was amazing, done all that, but I've lost interest.
Right.
Yeah?
So what are the other elements?
So the other one is fire, okay?
Right.
And you know we're very cautious and afraid of fire, but we really need to re-look and design the way that we, you know, actually approach fire. You know, fire is an amazing healing tool. It's like, you know, it's as healing as food. Yeah. And if you can sit with the fires, it opens the chakras up, it spins the energy bodies, okay, and it clears, okay, a lot of the emotional energy pollution away. It just burns it away from you, okay. It's like that layer of dust that you picked up or dirt, and it just clears it all off. So actually sitting with a fire and a flame is really important. Now, a lot of people obviously can't have access to an open fire. Okay, so what can you do then? Well, you can use like candles, tea lights, etc.,
right,
and place those around you. It's not as strong, obviously, but it's good. So fire is very important, you know, and a lot of the Indians, you know, ceremonies, etc., you know, they have dhunis, which are fire temples, which go for 24 hours, you know.
Yeah. We had a guy on who did Agnihotra.
Oh yeah.
The Agnihotra stuff.
Yeah.
The other week. So the fire. So fire is in some way magical, is what you're saying. There's an element there that freezes.
It's one of the eternal elements. Okay, so you know, the real point behind the whole which I'll go on to. I'm diverting again. Is truth, simplicity, and love. Let's get back to just truth, simplicity, and love. Okay. Let's make it really simple. Okay, and within those is understanding. You know, the truth is that you need to clear your energy body. You know, you need to keep, you know, it's all very good having a good physical body and a good mental mind, but those two things, you know, you still have to be aware of your energy body inside.
So is the fire the energy body?
No, the fire is similar to, but it's not. The fire is used to clean the energy and invigorate the energy body. Yeah. But it is the internal fire as well. You do have an internal fire.
Like the chi, the prana.
The prana, exactly, my man. So, and then we're going down to water, okay? And, you know, water's amazing. You know, if you know, the main thing that really shifted my life, and by the way, I'll tell you why all of these things are good later, because, you know, they've made huge effects into my life and the way that I've gone, and now the way that I live and see and delivered abundance, you know, and abundance in all areas. But the water is about cleaning as well, like cleaning the pollution away, the energy pollution away. So you need to be bathing twice a day, and this is either a shower or a bath, but obviously it's better in a bath to breathe if you can.
Does a cup of tea count?
Not really, my man, but I'll let you off.
All right, I have a couple of those a day. All right, so hold on. What is this? Why bathing? I mean, what? If you have to be bathing, then what about the people in the olden days that didn't have access to water and stuff? Were they all just because they didn't have water that they could bathe in, like trapped?
Well, they were more likely to take on their conditioning a lot more and die a lot earlier, basically. Okay. You know, not only for sanity reasons and infection reasons, but also for their own purification. These are purification practices.
And the bathing is for
the energy body.
Sorry, the bathing is for purification, not for like cleanliness of like
all of the well, inadvertently they help with that. Yeah.
It's hot here. It's hot. Got a fucking scarf on. Okay, sorry. Right.
But these are all purification practices.
Right.
So water purification twice a day, either sunrise, sunset, before and after, around that time, cleaning away all this dirty energy pollution that you've picked up. Okay. Now there's different water types as well. Yeah, cold and hot, obviously. Right. Yeah, and hot opens up the chakras. Cold closes them down but cleans them. I just had a friend say, "You're perfect." That's beautiful. Yeah.
Said what?
But then there's also the different types, like seawater, right, river water,
right,
and then thermal baths, and they all do amazing things too. You know, and where we run our courses on this beautiful Greek island, we have all three water types, which is amazing. So, you know, we're very lucky there. Anyway, but minimum you can do is do 2 showers a day, and that really will change everything for you after a couple of weeks. Honestly, the shift is amazing.
Right.
Your personal aliveness is huge.
Right. Interesting. I've personally, I don't think I've ever really done 2 showers a day, except when it was really hot.
I can smell you from here.
Except when it was really hot in India, I might have done 2 showers, but apart from that, it kind of somewhere feels like it's a waste of water, and it's I'm already clean. I can but I'll try it. I'll try it.
I think a portion of asceticism here, is really important, but also abundance and relaxed asceticism, which is great. So the next one is where are we at?
Earth, yeah. If we're elementing.
Okay, and Earth is like massage, which is amazing.
Right.
Okay.
Touch.
Music, food,
dance,
which comes into there. Okay, which overlaps again. If you're looking at that.
Dance.
Sorry, dance. Making love. All the great grounding, earthy things that you can do. Also, just going back to water, the quality of water that you're drinking as well is really important.
Right. And speaking of water, Tiffany says that ocean air is particularly good as a purifier.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's got air and water in it, so that's good.
Right, so it's
you're doing 2 purifications at once.
And what about the salt? Is the salt, because salt is an interesting element. So is the fact that it's salty as well, does that have an added kind of cleansing effect?
I couldn't answer that, Mark. To be honest, but
Sorry, we don't spend much time.
For my sea sailing days and everything like that, yes, probably it does.
I was going to say we don't spend much time at the ocean in England. It's too bloody cold.
Yeah. Well, I'm here on a pass through because basically, I was supposed to be in Bali and then in this Mediterranean as well. So I kind of got caught out here, but it's been interesting because I've had to do some sort of ancestral healing, I think, this time around.
Right.
It's been really beautiful. But to witness England in peace, man, has been unbelievable. Really? Super beautiful.
Right.
Magical country, man.
When the spring happens, England is gorgeous.
It is really gorgeous, mate. And May is just the blossoms out and everything. It's just
good old Brighton.
That is the healer and educator.
Nature.
That's it.
Right. Well, so let's talk about that then. Nature, because nature has all the elements in, right?
It does, and it has all the answers if you're ready to listen and see and feel it.
So what does feel it mean? Because what if you're angry? Does feel it mean getting angry? Do you have to go and punch a wall or something?
Well, you could go and punch a tree if you like, but I think my grandfather did that as well. He punched a tree trying to show off to my grandmother actually, and broke his hand. He was a forester. He planted like over 1 million trees in the UK.
Right.
Amazing guy.
Right.
And anyway, well, actually, when you walk in nature, so when I go on my walk, and you can feel the energy change, right? You can feel the system, and this then beautifully goes in. And thanks for bringing it up, Prof. Is that basically the environment in which you're in, can bring up these emotional energy pollutions as well, Right. So your own death urge, can bring up emotional energy pollution. So the environment that you choose is really important. It needs to be a kind of healing environment, and do people have a choice? And I'm always thinking about, the poor old mum who's got, 4 kids in a council estate, how is she in control of her environment and stuff?
Yeah.
Well, hopefully she can, go for a walk around the block, once, we haven't been completely locked down in the UK. You're allowed to do one exercise part.
Right, I've heard you've
got
limits.
So hopefully some wood around her that she can get into. And when you get into nature, the vibe changes.
Right.
And people become calmer, and there's a peace, and there's a life force there. There's a life force that is at peace, that doesn't say anything, that doesn't need to say anything. It's the expression of the beauty that it is, right?
Yeah.
So, that is why it's such a healer, you know, and you know, the ancient vision quests, for example, even the elements that make up nature, you know, they're all there for you to use and abide with. And actually, you know, the thing that I didn't mention is after my master's, I took a sabbatical and I actually went and lived in a woods for 6 months on a Greek island, and it was the most fundamentally life-changing experience of my life. You know, it was unbelievable in the sense that, you know, it took me 2 months to get out the way of myself.
Right.
You know, where I was really saying, "What the hell are you doing? You haven't got any mind."
Right. All the judgments and the voices and
all the voices, man, and it was just like everywhere, going nuts. And then one morning, you know, I woke up and it was honestly probably like, you know, the most amazing ecstatic feeling in the world, which was to experience human being. You know, and everything looked more different. You know, the trees were just so beautiful. The rivers and the water was just amazingly clear. And there was just this freedom of space in the mind, and it was almost like eating the red pill in the Matrix. You know, you can't go back from that.
Now, you know, you mentioned this term beyond mind, which is a very familiar term to me, mainly because I did go beyond mind about 8 years ago, maybe 10. And when I came back, all these words, they don't work. When I stood up in my body, the Markabadi body, and then I went outside, everything was as you described it. It was that awakening of space, that awakening of the divine beauty and perfection in the now. Is that what you would describe your experience as, that divine perfection in the experience of the now?
Totally. And it was almost like you were seeing it from a different space, you know, absolutely in the moment and in the presence of all of it, you know. So there was no judgment there was no mind involved, there was no left-sided analytical stuff, you know. There was a balance of the right and left hemispheres for the first time. There was the beyond, you know, the outside, which is what I really want to stay in all the time. It's amazing. Right.
And so what? And I do want to get to ancestral healing. I want to talk about that. But
yes,
what is your practice you do to remain awake in the beyond?
Sorry. The other two bits, Prof, that I forgot to add in was that, you know, you need to put in love, okay, as well, which is a huge one, which is, you know, having the willingness to process other people's negativity.
Right.
And then grace, of course, okay, and being in the grace.
What is the grace?
Of the beauty. I think there's a lot of bhakti in grace, the devotion, you know, but there's also, you know, which is, I need to get in there. I wanted to get bhakti in at some point. That, you know, to be, you know, to be godlike, to actually, you know, be really humble and kind and wonderful and those sort of things, you know, and have the, you know, the patience, okay, to be in that space.
Jeffrey Armstrong was telling me the origin of the word patience. I hope I get this fucking right. Oh, Jesus. Anyway, it comes from giving attention to what you give your time to. That was it, time. And the word patience origins in Sanskrit from that which you have time for. And
beautiful.
And it changes everything, because patience means like a dedication of time, a dedication of self to time, to it. So it's like, you know, giving yourself.
But I mean, I think, you know, one of my main purposes in this lifetime was to learn, you know, I think a lot of us have to learn patience, you know. It's actually given to me, learn patience. And the way that I've learned patience is that, you know, there's no time anymore, you know. There's no time structure for me in place anymore. Everything is as it's meant to be and endless, you know. It's abundant, you know. that the physical body has to go through certain stages, obviously, but I'm looking forward to them. I'm ready for them, you know, and I'm looking forward to that experience. And because I've got these tools, these physiological, spiritual purification tools to help me, you know, everything's possible. It's great.
You know, I always find that statement that, you know, how language traps us within realms, and that's, you know, what Jeffrey's going to be speaking about on Friday. But you know, how language traps us. Looking forward to something. For me, like, I want to say that also, like, oh, I'm looking forward to talking with you, Ben. You know, but because my focus is on being present, I'm actually not looking forward. I'm looking now. But looking forward to is like, I like living in the expectation of the future.
Yeah.
Do you find that's
it's a conditioning phrase, isn't it?
Right.
You know, it's like you know, mind the gap, or but, try, should. You know, I've removed those from my vocabulary completely, and within 1 month of doing that, my life changed.
Really? What?
You know, like fundamentally for the better. You know, it wasn't in this space of, because I mean, if we break it down in the simplest sense, and I'll just do this with very simple words, you know, but is the thing that is the negative ending to the sentence, right? So it was a beautiful day, but it rained.
Right.
Yeah. It was a beautiful day and it rained. Well, you know, that's changed everything, hasn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And, you know, try is sort of sitting on the fence. Yeah, you know, I'll give that a try. Yeah, I'll do that. I'll try that. I'll try it. You know, either you will or you won't.
Right. As
and,
Yoda
you know,
said.
Even if you don't want to, that's great too, man.
Right.
Just don't do it.
Right.
But at least you're in action, right? Either way. But tries, you know, sat on the fence. And then, you know, should, if anyone's saying should to you, that's their stuff. You know, you really must, or you should, or you know, you should be doing these things. That's their stuff. It's not your stuff. It's their concern or their fear. So, I mean, again, going back to looking forward when you said that as well, it's like, you know, predicting a future event based on the conditioning with some fear involved or whatever, you know, and I don't really want to, I'm into aliveness and life and whatever promotes life or gives me an abundant life and gives others abundant lives and gives love and, you know, all that around us. So if words can translate into helping that process, you know, which a lot of the Sanskrit does, then that's beautiful. But also remember that energy, thought, word, you know, and thought is word is the materialization, the earthly materialization of thought. It's just the next step down. Right. So, you know, you can be a spell master and a wizard like yourself with words, you know.
I mean, there's an encoding, isn't there, that happens with words. They're spells. They're magical spells.
100%.
You know, I mean, I grew up in England like you. I assume you grew up in England by your accent. And, you know, one of the things I had to cure myself from is the incipient sarcasm that I had to grow up with. Like, even the comical joke of, you say, oh, I can smell you from here, right? It's like, that is so British.
I know, man. But we could have done so many more.
Absolutely.
Afternoon.
Absolutely.
We could have fitted right back into that.
I don't think that Americans understand how much effort it takes for Brits not to be snipey at each other. You know.
That's why when I met you on those stairs, you know, in San Francisco, and it was like, all right, love, fancy a boogie. You know, it was just beautiful. I just, you know, I've never felt so endeared towards a Manchester accent before, and it was just like, oh man, because I'd had Californian for like the last 2.5, 3 months.
Right. I tell you what, when a Brit turns up in America, you remember.
You really notice it.
You notice it. So you know, of that, obviously, words are spells, and we must. It's more beneficial to our being and our wellness to pay attention to the words we're using and focus upon the positive affirmations and the direct statements rather than tries and expectations of others, musts and excuses and all those things. That really does have an effect.
Yeah, I mean, you know, when you're in a spiritual community, you know, you don't really need to talk much. You know, you've noticed that, and actually you can speak a lot with eyes. Yeah. And I find that very powerful. I mean, it's one of the things that endeared me to you, actually, to be honest. You've got amazing eyes, you know. Yeah. They sort of, they tell a story and they divine and they sparkle, you know, and that means that there's something eternal going on, I think, you know. Not particularly yours, but...
Oh, right. Okay, I thought you were saying mine. Oh, fuck you then. No, thank you. And yes, you're right. You know, the eyes, windows to the soul and everything. Few things. We're coming towards the end, but I do want to say Abby has joined us on the Zoom. Abby, if you, I don't know who Abby is. Abby, she's a very good friend of mine. Oh, Abby's one of yours. Okay, great. Abby, if you want to come on and ask Ben something or make a comment, fine. We'll get to you. Hang there, but be ready to come on within the next 20 minutes, probably in about 10 minutes. Okay, good, Abby. Okay. Back to this point, ancestral healing. Let's talk about that because there is a curiosity in me and others as to where do these things store this ancestry? Because I really don't buy into this whole notion that, you know, because having gone beyond mind, the place I went, there was no one else there, including me. Right? The first thing I noticed was Markabadi was not there, and I'm like. Okay. But it was all normal. Markabadi wasn't there, nor was there anything else. There were no souls, there were no past shit, there was nothing. There was just the void. And I was the void. And it was beautiful and perfect. Great. Now, so my direct experience, my direct realization is I've been to a place where I am it all without Markabadi being there. Okay. And in that place, there was nothing to do, no problem to solve, no evolution, no past lives to escalate me up to the winning point of, oh, now I'm enlightened. There was no scale of anything. So I ask, where do ancestral memories store?
Good, very good. So was that, just a comment to that, was that a very blissful, joyful place that you were in?
Absolutely, and permanent.
Yeah, amazing. Well, you know,
but it was just to answer that question a little bit deeper. It was also not as you would describe bliss, joy, or have ever experienced it, because it wasn't a human a being. And so all the definitions that Markabadi had about joy and blissness and happiness and loneliness, oh, won't it be lonely in the void? No, because there ain't no loneliness there, mate, because there's no two. Yeah. And if there's no two, there's no interaction and comparison. Yeah. And now I've got someone, now I don't. Loneliness.
On a physical, you know, so the body that you've inherited as a soul has had the physical makeup of it has had a lineage, right?
Great.
You know, to some greater or lesser extent.
Absolutely.
Whether you've had a past life, if you're into past lives at all, into another incarnation of another body from another place, right. You know, you're still, you know, in this body that I chose, you know, I believe that I've had quite a lot of English or British stuff to process, you know. Right. Or whatever that goes with.
Well, because your ancestry is British.
Because my actual the bones and flesh of it, which were just thought and everything like that, is made up of a lot of that other stuff.
Right.
And I've come into this guy, you know. So there is a component of that to heal. Okay, and then there's also the karmic loads that goes with that as well.
Right.
But, you know, if I don't want to get too stuck on karmic debt, because, you know, I mean, Ram Dass came up in conversation, you know, yesterday, I believe, or the day before.
Yeah.
On your show.
Yeah, Sridhar was good friends with him.
Love that beautiful man. Yeah. Same as Daddy Yankee that passed away similar time. Who I'm a massive fan of as well, Brahma Kumaris. And if you ever want to do like words and thought for today, Daddy Yankee was one of the best, you know,
nice.
At writing things. Anyway, I was looking into this a lot recently, is that, you know, people can get hung up on karmic debt, you know, in the sense that, you know, I'm having a very privileged, well-to-do life because I must have been very good in another life.
Right.
Therefore, I can get away with all the sins that come with having flying people around over the world, doing whatever there it is, you know. So, what, you know, there is a funny side to the karmic stuff, but it definitely does feature. Okay, so when I say it, I almost say it fairly loosely, but I do feel now, like, you know, I don't really want to be in England, you know, anymore, living here, you know. I've sort of freed myself to be on more, you know, of a world sort of play and, you know, with people around the world that I love as well, and brothers and sisters around the world. So it's not like I'm attached to a place anymore in that sense.
Okay. So Abby has posted a question. She wants you to tell us about your journey of ego death, and how you're moving through the victim energy.
Oh, very.
Yeah, she knows you. She likes.
I didn't ask her to tell.
Yeah, no, obviously
that's
not.
a good one.
Yeah. So, but I mean, you know, ego death we're talking about in a bit, but I'd love to hear your story of ego death, because the beyond mind is an ego death. Obviously, you're not there, so you have to have died. But
of course,
I'm definitely interested.
I think Quincy Robin Jones, who's the Quincy Jones, said that ego is you know, our insecurities all dressed up, yeah, and the ego death for me basically was, you know, it's always. It's a survivor, right? It's a survivalist type consciousness, yeah, that wants to be in there. And it comes up at the same levels, you know, with you all the time. You think you get enlightened, and then there you are again. Boom. The old death.
What I think about in those times is, you know, in Superman 3, you're old enough to know Superman 3, where Richard Pryor say, "It wants to live!" And it's like, I always think of that for the ego, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, even though you've gone beyond, it wants to live.
And I've been fooled by it many times, you know, and you know, it works in mysterious, beautiful, wonderful ways. You know, and that's by, you know, keeping an awareness on all of that is huge. But, you know, sometimes simply just surrendering to the fact that it can happen, or it might happen, is okay. You know, that's just it. Anyway. What the dangerous side of that is then going back into this, you know, victim consciousness, you know, and it really is our own responsibilities. If there's anything we can do as humans, is to heal our relation with victim consciousness, and that doesn't mean like an over exaggeration to the other side, to be like a rebel or a victor, or, you know, someone that's really confident with all of it. It actually means going deep into the pain of where that originates from, you know. Right. And being really honest about that. And, you know, as facilitators in this day and age now, well, my friends and I, you know, and my colleagues in our line of work, you know, we're really embracing people's pain. You know, it's good to celebrate pain, you know, and be there to help people through it. So keeping an environment that's very, very safe, that's nurturing, almost like a womb, to allow these things to happen.
Yes.
And then keeping an open mind on everything is key as well. So I don't know whether I've answered a question there, but certainly it forms part of the biggies.
You know, totally.
You know?
The main point is, find yourself, or create for yourself, a safe womb and go into the discomfort. It's never about avoidance, is it?
It's never about avoidance, because it's going to come up and bite you in the ass at some point.
Right. Because you know, I talk about the universe, and the universe doesn't avoid anything.
doesn't avoid anything at all. It's abundantly there for us to access,
right.
you know, and give us its energy and light, you know, all the time. And it's interesting this period, isn't it? You know, that you know, for those that are kind of been almost, I mean, I've been sort of doing this journey thinking the world's mad 5 years ago, and like, when's it going to pause? You know, when are we actually going to put a pause on the world, because it's just escalating out of control? And then all of a sudden, you know, you've got this amazing pause button given to you. It's like, wow, it's fucking brilliant. It's listen.
Do you know, I mean, pretty much everyone I've had on the show is excited about this.
Hugely excited. They're hugely excited, Prof. You know, I think for the guys that have been, you know, just spending shitloads of money on Vipassanas, trying to get the
it's sort of an anti. That's sort of weird, that, because if Vipassana is donation based, so
yeah, well, I know what you mean, but you know, going to all these courses, you know, trying to get this space of solitude, of, you know, silence, of peace, of, you know, all of those areas for self-reflection, you know, and it's just been handed to you, you know.
I think one of the questions I want to ask you quickly before it's too late is something that came up with me recently. You know, I was talking with my master, and this notion of Markabadi has emotions, and he has stuff that comes up, and he gets angry and he gets happy, and, you know, Markabadi, it wants to live. The ego is still here, even though the ego died for me to awaken beyond mind. The ego is still here, and it has issues and stuff, right? It has insecurities and different things like that. How much do you think we need to focus on helping the ego to feel resolved? Like the degree to which it's a trap to go into the ego fixing it. Oh, I could just fix a little bit more and I'll get more perfect. Oh, I'll fix a little bit more. Oh, I'm dead now. As opposed to leaving all the ego drama completely and sitting in the stillness of transcendence. Like,
which one feels better?
Which one feels better? Well, the transcendence, of course. I mean, feels.
Well, then
better.
do that.
But then the Markabadi is still here with all of his stuff, and in getting to reconnect with the transcendent energy, the ego almost has to get out of the way, has to die each time. And my question is, how much comfort does the ego, like, is the optimum amount of comfort and wombage to give the ego? Wombage, lovely bit of wombage. How much wombage is good to give the ego?
That's a lexicon, Prof. Well done.
How much wombage? I'm going to write it down. How much wombage is good? Womb bag. How much wombage is good to give the ego?
Well, look, I mean, you know, the guru and master that is, you know, Katia and my master, my beautiful sister Federica's master as well, you know, Leonard, and my friend Danny as well, amazing. You know, he said, it's really sad because I had a load of people that I loved to pieces that were on my wavelength into this idea of physical immortality consciousness, that, you know, they were taking their time to be immortals, and they ended up dying because, you know, and then he was asked why did they die when they were, you know, taught all these things from you and, you know, given all these lessons. He said, well, they were still quite attached to their conditioning. You know, they were still quite fond of little bits of their conditioning, you know, and the whole point, you know, another amazing word that harks back to you know, religious historic times is repentance. And repent is re-feel or rethink, pensar, think again on your thoughts or your patterns or your habits. And if you can't do that, then they're going to come and bite you in the ass, or the ego will come back again, right? The other thing that I just want to bring in quickly as well, in terms of that, and it maybe it does answer the question or it doesn't, but it might be related, is, you know, sin in Greek, right, translates as missing the mark.
Missing me.
You know that. Yeah. Missing the mark.
Yeah, I know that.
Right? But what is the mark?
Yeah.
You know, what is the mark? And it is the, you know, the constant staying of oneness, or the constant being in oneness. Yeah. So when you repent on your sins, well, you're rethinking about being in the constant state of oneness. So what stops or prevents you from being in the constant state of oneness? You know, ego has to come in and stop you from being there.
Right.
So it's like, it has to, because it's not interested in anything else but its own survival.
Right.
It doesn't care whether you die, okay? It just cares about its own survival.
That it knew itself.
And it's part of that monkey mind stuff that people always go on, which I'm glad now that I just don't get that anymore. I can use my mind as a tool, you know, which is amazing.
Amazing. Benjamin, thanks so much for coming on. We still do have Abby here. We could add her in and see what happens.
Yeah,
Abby, you are added in. Don't know where you are. I'll have to do a seamless transition to you if you come on. I need your video, Abby. Give us your video, Abby. Give us your video.
She's in Australia. She'll be in Australia.
She's in Oz? All right, but now I've got to do a seamless transition. Abby! Hello?
Come on, Abs.
Oh, we can't hear you, honey. Your speakers, your microphone's bad. Say it again. Yeah. Throw the headphones away. Can you hear us?
Hi.
Hi.
Hey.
Hey, what's up? I just got out of the water.
Amazing.
You look great. Tell us, Abby, what have you got to share with us?
What have I got to share with you?
What have you got? A question? Have you got a point to calling in?
I
mean, you say it like, what have I got to share with you? Why would I have anything? I mean, you're on our show.
I sent you that question before.
It's been answered.
Wait a second, let me find it. There's this beautiful thing that I found just earlier. So on what Ben was talking about with the womb and the tomb, the womb.
Womb in the tomb. I like that. Yeah, go on.
The wombage.
Wombage is, what if this darkness is not the darkness of the tomb, but the darkness of the womb? What if this chapter is not about dying, but it is a chapter that is waiting to be born? What if this chapter is one long labor? What does the midwife tell us to do? Breathe, and then push. Because if we don't push, we will die. Tonight we will breathe. Tomorrow we will labor in love. And through love, and this revolutionary love, is the magic we will show our children.
Oh, that's gorgeous, Diane. That's so beautiful. Thank you.
Very nice. But and what question emerges from that is about the polarity, right? About the duality, seem to be. What if it's not this and it's that? What if we're mistaken in looking at this and that? And it comes back to the triad question. Like, is there ever any answer in the duality?
Well, there is a holy trinity that I, like to use, and that is, energy, thought, form, and we are energy, thought, form, and we have, the ability, if you really believe it, to actualize past our materialization, and that's the ultimate, one of the ultimate goals, I should think, is to be able to transfigure. So that would be my approach on all of that, and achieving balance in everything, during this human cycle is the key to accessing some of those potentials.
Nice. Right. Oh, Benjamin, it's been great. Abby, thanks for coming on. I'm gonna kick you off though. Bye. Actually, I just stopped your video, and of course I have to do a seamless transition. God, it's not that seamless. Oh God, it was near. Ben, thanks so much. I've realised that there's another call happening at 4, so I have to be off in 2 minutes. But I just wanted to see where can people get hold of you? What's happening in your world? Are you seeing clients?
www.globalbreathingawareness.com.
Okay.
We've been trying to work on an app for a while. we're still looking for some partners in that as well. A Gappy app, amazing.
Right. Okay. What do you need?
Well, what do most people need?
Floose. You need floose. Manish for loose.
Give us a dosh.
Give us some lurker, lad. Okay, so you need some floose. Do you need any programmers or fun stuff like that?
We're okay, but
right.
yeah, thank you for that.
All right, cool.
Yeah,
right.
so anyway, Om Namah Shivaya.
Thank you so much, Benjamin, for coming on. It's been a great pleasure, great chat. I'll just go into my my sum up here. Thank you to my guests today, Tiffany and Benjamin. We talked about creation, and again, the triad comes up. The triad comes up, and it keeps coming up, and there is a cycle of these things. And no matter what's going on in the duality, there's always the balance and the reharmonization of on the reharmonization of these things. Ben, I'm muting you. The reharmonization of the duality. There's balance. Look after yourselves. Be present with yourselves and breathe. Remember, everything is already okay. Okay? So, I've got a book Evolve. Check it out online. Otherwise, see you tomorrow. We've got Anders and Ian Michael on tomorrow. Some amazing community builders on tomorrow for Witchy Wizardy Wednesday, and more people to come later in the week. Thanks. Like and share where you can. Lots of love.